Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the Chem Lab. If you've stayed with us this long, and I thank you if you have, then you've learned that there are four different categories of ionic compounds. And today we're going to do the one that is arguably the most complicated because not only does it contain transition elements, which need a little extra care because of those Roman numerals, and polyatomic ions, which also need a little extra care because they come in groups and they have different endings. So these, if you can master these, you are well on your way to perfectly mastering your upcoming quiz or test on ionic compounds. So grab your periodic table and your polyatomic ions, and let's get going. As always, we're going to start with our organizational chart and find out where we're at. We've already done metal ions with monatomic anions. We've already done metal ions with polyatomic ions, transition metals and monatomics, but right now we're staying down here at the bottom where we're going to have some Roman numerals, and we're also going to ending our compounds in ate or ite for the most part. Okay, so to review a couple of things from the earlier slides, just a quick note. If this is your first time here and we're late in the series on ionic compounds, you may want to go back and check the playlist that this video is in and check out the first ones that build up to this one. You may also want to have a periodic chart of ions and a polyatomic chart of ions. Those are available on the internet or from your teacher or wherever. Examples with transition elements. This is review. Transition elements will need a Roman numeral in the name of the chemical compound. Leave a space for it when you recognize those transition elements. Find the total negative charge on the anion side. That can get a little dicey today when we're doing those polyatomic ions. This charge must be balanced by the transition metal. Use whatever Roman numeral you need to balance the charges. So we'll practice that. And in examples with polyatomic ions, when naming those ions, use the ending ate or ite. They're going to have one word for that whole polyatomic ion, which could be a huge thing, but one word. Use your chart to find that name. Don't guess it. Ignore the subscripts and simply name each ion once. So we're going to name the metal, check to see if it needs a Roman numeral, and name everything else with one word. And if you can do that for all the ionic compounds, you are crushing it. Okay, here we go. First one, there's copper. It's given the element letter Cu because back in the day it used to be called cuprum. I'm not quite that old to remember that, but cuprum was what it used to be called. All right, but it is a transition element, and I know that it needs a Roman numeral because it can either be a 2 or a 1. So if you have your periodic chart of ions available, this is handy because you get a chance to see what are the possible charges it could be. I'm either going to put a 2 or a 1 in that Roman numeral space because that's the only 2 that it has. A caveat here, things like manganese have way more charges than are just the 2 that are on here. And so you may see some Roman numerals that aren't on there, and just go with it. Okay, so it's going to be a 1 or a 2. How do I tell? You might look over here and say, all right, what do we have left? Everything else needs one name. And if we go to our polyatomic ions chart and find it, we find out that it's, and mine is down here, SO4 with a 2 minus charge. That's sulfate ion. All right, so sulfate. So let's put that there. Okay, now for the Roman numeral. What do I do with that? Well, a common mistake here is to, backtrack and cross the charges again. And some people take that 4 and put it back up here and think the copper needs to be a 4. It actually is not. Check the charge, not the subscripts. SO4 is a 2 minus charge. So whatever the copper is, it has to balance a 2 minus and add up to a 2 plus. Since there's only one copper doing it, that means the copper is the 2 plus charge. So it is copper 2 sulfate in my example here. All right, I picked an element for the next one that a lot of people don't see very often. It lurks here at the bottom of the periodic table where nobody ever really looks for things. Right there. So Europium. Sometimes those elements talk to me and they say, why doesn't anybody look down here and find us? Well, I try to give them some love sometimes. So Europium. That's the name of that element. And we need a Roman numeral because it can mean more than one possible charge. Okay, so now let's take care of the other half. We still see a big grouping here, and there's 3 of them. Let's go find that group on our polyatomic ions chart. It's commonly mislabeled nitrate. Nitrate actually has 3 oxygens. Nitrite has only 2. That's sort of the convention. The one with fewer oxygens gets the ite. The one with more oxygens gets the ate. So we'll call this nitrite. Okay, now for the Roman numeral. I need to balance the charges with that Roman numeral. So let's go and put a -1 here. That's what the charge of nitrite is. And then I see there's -1 of them, and there's 3 of them at -1 each. So that's a total of -3 on this side. Okay, so we have to do that step. Then we go over here, and whatever europium is has to add up to +3. Again, there's only one doing it, so europium 3 nitrite is the name for that one. Okay, let's see what you got. I have 2 more on here, and they both contain polyatomic ions and transition elements. Take a moment, pause the video, look at your charts, see if you can name these. I'll see you back here in a couple seconds. All right, moment of truth. If you got these 2 right, congratulations. You're probably going to ace your upcoming quiz. All right, the first one is gold 1 chromate. Chromate is the name of that whole thing, and it's a -2 charge, so each gold has to be a 1 to get it. And then vanadium cyanide. Cyanide is that thing. Yes, it has an IDE. There's a couple of that end in IDE, even though they're on the chart. And there's 5 of them at 1- each, so the vanadium has to balance it. That's got to be a Roman numeral 5. You may need to brush up on your Roman numerals at this point, but hopefully not. All right, so if you got that, congratulations. We did some pretty challenging ones today. So I hope you found it helpful. And if you have any questions, you can send them to me. And in the meantime, happy studying and have a great day.